Hey, it's Laura at Hyperstamper. I have two, what I think are winter cover themed journals, but they could be for anything. This is a vintage book called Beckoning Trails from the 50s, and it's got this lovely image of a skier going down the hills, and I've just added some lace up here and a vintage mother of pearl button, which is a triangle button. It's actually kind of rare. And then this one is the classic Hans Brinker from the 30s, this edition. And so it's a Dutch story, a classic. And so he's skating, he's skiing. I just thought they might make fun winter themes. So I'm going to do them both in the same video. Kill two birds with one stone here. So let's take a look at Hans Brinker, or as we sometimes call the story, the Silver Skates. And I've left in the first pages here, which is a lovely transcript here from a pastor who had gifted this book to a student, Earl Goodwin, who got 24 to 25 answers on an exam and tied for first place. So he was the winner of this book. And then over here it says Wayne Goodman. So I don't know if that's maybe a nickname or a son, but this is from June 1925. So everything in here is authentic, antique, and vintage ephemera, except for a few tea-dyed pages, which I added for extra journaling space. I love these old interior signature spine from the antique books. I try to pull the books apart so these are left intact because I use them all the time. So over here, just another little winter theme page from a vintage children's book. And then I put in a little tag here, which is the New York skyline from the dictionary, which I thought was fun. And this is just an antique book page from the book Beautiful Joe, a book about a lovely dog. And I put it in here because I think it's sort of special. It's dedicated to the president of the American Humane Education Society. And I thought that was very, very special. This is from the 1930s. I'll get to that in a second. A shorthand antique book page here. And a lovely vintage sewing piece here. And then this wonderful page from, this one is from the Girls' Own Annual. From 1915, and the images are really beautiful on that. So that's something lovely to be enjoyed. We've got vintage pattern pages. We've got a little paper doll outfit here, one of the last ones, and one of those, the last of those lovely vintage hankies that I was able to get at an auction, or sorry, an antique store, that one. Wonderful vintage antique prints from books. This is from 1925 here, or sorry, 1940. It's a roll call from the Beacon Lodge. A wonderful photograph of a mom and baby on their front porch from the 1930s. And this is a vintage playing card from when Prince Edward visited Canada, and a little vintage Canadian stamp to go with that, made it an antique pocket. A vintage wildflower page, a 1800s stereoscope photo here, and lots of clusters in this book. And then of course this came out of a children's book from the 1930s, which is the story of Hans Brinker or the Silver Skates. So I thought, two different books, same story, they should live together. And just some more antique book pages. This is from a vintage bird book, which is a lovely spread here. Another handmade journaling tag that I made, in a 1950s magazine page on costume making, which is really fun. And you're going to just love all the little clusters. I'm not going to show them all to you because it's a nice surprise when you see them. And I want to go through this quickly to get two in. This is a lovely postcard from the very early 1900s, probably 1905 to 1910 in there. Sorry, I'm not going to force that in right now. And just a little journaling page here. There's so, I really overstuffed these ones. There's another little journaling spot that opens up. 1950s Theatre World magazine, an early 1900s page here. Vintage wine label, vintage canasta score sheet, another wonderful ledger page here, and just some antique paper and on top of a children's book page. Look at these wonderful images. And there's one of those antique Watchman's clock dials. And then another 1940s dictionary page, a vintage recipe page, a vintage doily, a vintage American road map, vintage American gardening magazine, and then another one of these journaling envelopes, and that is made from a pocket of a doily. Another one of those wonderful recipes. 1926 ledger page. I feel like I'm in a marathon right now. And then just some more fun clusters here, and I added the last page of the book, the end page. You don't always get those. So that's the Hans Brinker. That's listed on Etsy now. And then this one here was Beckoning Trails. And this one is transcribed in 1952 to a school. And look at this. These are the original first pages. Look at this one. I just think it's hysterical. I know clowns are the big thing right now. Scary or not, there he is. And again, the same sort of thing. We've got a vintage bingo card in this one. Another one of those wonderful ledger pages and recipe book pages. American Garden. This one has a photo. Oh, this one is from the early 1920s. And that's a couple with their little baby. Looks like they're going somewhere special, the way the baby is dressed there. And I made that pocket out of a doily. And over here, I have this wonderful little journaling spot here, but I acquired this. It's an old on-off switch. I didn't have the switch, darn it, just that little plate. And then a 1946 ledger page back there. Some wonderful clusters. A vintage playing card here. Very old, I can't date it, but it's old and well loved. A Theatre World magazine from the 30s, children's book pages, another one of these wonderful ledger pages here with attendance. More children's book pages, this really beautiful French postcard, and that one is from the 1930s. And then another one of these lovely 1915 Girls' Own Annual. And look at the costume, or not the costumes, that's what they wore. So these would have been patterns advertised in that book. And another vintage journaling tag here. Actually, that's a newspaper from the 1907. Canasta score sheet. This is a fun little thing. It's just a little card from Simpsons. We had Simpsons steers up here. So that would have been on a prescription for baby food. And this is the French Almanac from the 1930s from Paris, France. And that is another one of, and the last of the little doll outfits, paper doll outfits. A vintage recipe, a vintage 1950s magazine page. Gorgeous images of those women. A pattern here. This is just from an early 1920s children's book called Infants Magazine. The pages were cardstock, so I just turned it into a little journaling card. And there's that Paris, France Almanac page. And a 1920s music sheet, 1930s Monopoly chance card, and just a lovely poem from the early 1900s in here. I thought was kind of special. I love the images on this old book, The Joyous Travelers, and this was lucky there's an image on both sides. Another one of these wonderful bird images from a vintage bird book. There's another one of these lovely images, and another little journaling flip open on a French piece of paper, and a 1950s ad for coffee, Blue Ribbon coffee. And that brings us almost to the end here. And at the end, I just put in a vintage upholstery fabric over top of an antique book page. So that is also on Etsy right now. If you're looking for a winter themed journal, or you know somebody who loves the winter and needs a journal, go to Etsy and grab it fast. There's only one of each, and I will talk to you soon. The links are below. Bye for now.